Carmen and I, just a little bit of background. We've known each other for almost a decade now, since I bought my first house, and every house ever since, right?
Yes.
I'm very grateful to have you part of the team, and as a dear friend, so thanks again.
Thank you.
So I just want to ask you some questions for
Sure.
some people out there who are considering maybe investing in real estate, but they're not really sure how to get started, or they're scared. So let's start with an easy one. In your experience, and for all those people that would love to build wealth through real estate, what would you say is the best investment strategy, the best investment type?
I think any investment you're going to make in real estate is a smart investment. So whether it be single family, whether it be apartment buildings, multi-units, duplexes, I think no matter what you're going to invest in something and don't be afraid. I think the biggest word you said was afraid and scared. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid. So many people are afraid or scared. And as soon as you can overcome that, as we did in the first property you bought, right? You were scared.
Yeah,
we talked about it. You were,
because
what do
you don't know everything. You think that
know.
You have to know everything about banking strategy, how do mortgages work, what interest rates you need to get,
right.
Or what's a good property, what isn't. It's really, it seems like it's not rocket science though, right?
It's not rocket science. At the end of the day, it's not rocket science.
It's easier than the stock market.
It's way easier. And the nice thing is, truthfully, is other people are paying your mortgages.
Exactly.
That's the key. Other people, they need someplace to live. They're paying your mortgage for you. So that's really how you accumulate wealth, is by other people's money. Everybody said it. Trump said it. Everybody says it.
But speaking of other people's money, the bank also gives you 80% of what you need in order to finance something, right? And if your house appreciates or not, you get 100% of that equity.
That's right.
So
and then you can buy another one. And that's the other thing for any young people that are watching, is make sure keep your credit score perfect. It's extremely, extremely important, because when you do want to invest, if you don't have a bad credit score, if you have a bad credit score, they're not going to finance you.
Yeah,
so you may think now, okay, I didn't pay my Visa bill, or I didn't pay my Leon's, or don't pay a cent event. It's a huge deal. Yeah. It's a huge deal. And if you do get a mortgage, and when you do, make sure you don't go to these, don't pay a cent events, because that will affect you. When they do before they give you the mortgage, they will pull a credit app again. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that. When they pull that credit app, if you've changed your GDS or your TDS scores, you won't get the money. And just because you bought a couch for $1,000 that you're paying $50 a month on. Right. So make sure that's very important.
In your opinion, what do you think is the best real estate investment strategy? Buying holds versus flipping versus wholesaling, etc.
I've done pretty well all of those things. In my opinion, buying and holding in real estate over a long term, you will get your greatest investment, and you'll get your greatest lift and your greatest profit. I'm not saying that I haven't had clients that do flips all the time, and they do. Sometimes they make 60 grand, 70 grand on a flip. If you buy it, keep it, rent it, the difference is over 20 years, that lift the tenant paid for you. That's right. Because of they paid down your mortgage. I personally like buying, keeping long term if you can. So there is people that do have situations sometimes, separations, where they do have to sell all these investments that they made, or there's some things, deaths or estate sales or things that happen. But I personally think if you can buy and keep it long term, that's where you're going to get your biggest lift, your biggest increase. That's in my opinion. Again, everybody has a different take on that.
To build wealth, flipping more so is good for cash flow.
Flipping's great, quick, bang, you're in, you're out. You make 50 grand, 60 grand, which is fantastic.
But you're not building long-term.
You're not building long-term wealth. And the problem is, sometimes when my clients do that, they'll go out and buy a new car.
Yeah.
So they get their 50,000. Next thing you know, I see them a week later, and they just went and bought a brand new truck. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, let's get another property. Let's get a fourplex. Let's get a sixplex. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people want that instant gain. You got to remember, sometimes with real estate, it's a long-term, slow process. It's a great gain long-term, and a lot of people aren't dedicated to that long-term. They want instant gratification, especially nowadays in the new generation with texting and Facebook, Snapchat. Everything's so quick.
Instant, yeah.
Real estate is still and will always be long-term. Long-term.
So Carmen, when you're searching for an investment property, what are some of the top things you look for to make sure that it's going to be a really good investment and pay well in the long term?
When I took real estate course 27 years ago, when I took the real estate course 27 years ago, the teacher had said location, location, location. It has been that way since I've been in it, in my experience, for 27 years. You can change the structure, you can change the furnish, you can change the roof, you can change the floors, you can change everything about a property. You cannot change where it sits.
So what makes a really good rental for a buy and hold in terms of location? What do you look for
You know,
in your neighborhood?
you have to look at what's near it. So are there grocery stores, depending on your tenant. So if you want, if you're going for an upper end, you may want to be near shopping malls. Job location is very, very important. Can somebody walk to work, or do they need to take a taxi to work, or can they bus to work, or do they have a car? Parking is very important with location too. You have to make sure you have enough parking spots, right? You'll know if you ask any realtor when you're going in these different cities and you're searching for an investment property, you can ask, what's the best location? Try and find something in that vicinity of location, because then your tenants will want to be there. You can get a little more rent. You'll get a higher quality tenant. You won't have as many vacancies. And in the long term, again, I've had one girl living in a building for 22 years.
Wow.
The same tenant.
That's the
20,
goal. That's
22 years.
ideal.
That's what you want. You want somebody that's going to live there the rest of their life, hopefully. They're going to help you pay off your mortgage. And again, you need to always remember, I rent differently than a lot of other people do. And I think me and you have had this discussion the first day we met. And you do the exact same things that I do. And that's what's making you so successful now, is because you treat people the way you want to be treated.
Exactly.
You've done it from day one, and you still do that. So you're very good to your tenants. They will pay their rent, and they will be good in return. What you put out, you will receive 100%. We've discussed this many times, many, many times. And you're living testimony and proof of that to me, because I've seen it. And that's why your tenants do pay. They speak highly of you. You get many recommendations from another tenant. So it makes this easy for you. So a lot of people will complain and say, oh, I've heard horror stories. And
We've all heard them.
There's a ton of horror stories
Plenty.
out there that'll scare everyone. If you treat your tenants with respect and dignity and show them that that's their home, they will reciprocate 100%. And you'll
that's
have
brilliant,
no problem.
as you said. It's a long-term goal, investing, right?
It
It's
is.
a long-term game. So the better your reputation is, and how well you treat your tenants and everything, that's a long-term strategy.
Yes.
And it'll keep you in this game and keep you successful at it.
I've
right?
watched
So
you creating wealth and being successful.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right. So Carmen specializes in residential real estate for the last 27 years. Very successful at it. But you don't do any commercial, right? Tell us why.
Very, very, very little commercial. If I do get a phone call and someone wants me to represent them in selling a commercial property, I will, but I will discuss with them and tell them the truth. I am a residential specialist. I love residential because I love dealing with the first-time buyers that just got their new home and they're really super excited. As you look at what you've accomplished over the years. The last 10 years, I've seen you go from 1 to 2 to 3 and just keep going and going and going. I love that. Commercial is a little bit, it's not as personable, and I really like the personal touch on that, of the young families and building, and I've gotten calls now from grandparents. You have to sell my kids a house, you have to sell my grandchildren a house. That to me means the world to me. So
Building relationships with
it's
you
all
is like
about
number
relationships.
one.
It's all about relationships.
That's
It's
your
all about relationships.
edge.
It's not just about selling a house.
Yeah,
It's not. It's if anybody can just sell a house.
of course.
Simple.
You're
Put up a
absolutely
sign.
right.
You're good to go.
I remember you telling me a story that I always loved about when you were selling, you had a commercial property listed.
It was a motel.
And a motel,
Yep.
and I remember you sort of saying how you realized you were in a whole different
Totally out of my league.
realm.
Totally out
Yeah,
of
like
my league.
commercial was so different.
And the biggest issue, I think, I'm representing people, and usually in real estate, that is the most amount of money that people are ever going to deal with, is through your house or a commercial building. So I had a motel for sale. It was a friend that called me, wanted to sell his motel. So I was representing him, and I had a client call me, and one of his second questions was, I want to know how much the laundry bill is. So I said, well, what does that matter? I actually really thought, what a silly question. So I asked a little deeper questions, and I says, why do you care what the laundry bill is? He says, well, then I know if the books are real or not. He said, because if his laundry bill, he's showing me numbers. But if his laundry bill doesn't match those numbers, I know that he made those numbers up. That moment, that second, I realized, stick to residential because that's what you know. Here I was representing a $5 million property, and I didn't know why he asked me that question. I realized I'm messing around with a lot of people's money here. Residential, I know like the back of my hand, no problem. Locations, there's just so many things about commercial that you really have to know that I don't know about. And to tell you the truth, I'm not as interested in commercial. I'd rather sell a residential home.
Yeah,
right?
and it's a whole different sandbox with a lot of, it's riskier for sure,
It's
right?
very risky.
A lot more money is
A
involved.
lot more money. Harder to get mortgages from the bank.
That's right.
Residential, you know.
And they're even positioned differently at the bank.
Totally
They look more
different.
at the property
Totally
and
different.
the income coming from it as opposed
Totally
to
different.
you as
Totally
the
different.
as the
Now, when we're talking commercial again, I love selling units, apartment buildings, because that really is multi-unit residential. That's not commercial. It's different, two total different entities, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So Carmen, you are living proof that investing in real estate can make you a millionaire.
Yes.
In your case, a multimillionaire.
Thank you.
So what advice do you have for some people who are really trying to build wealth, maybe become a millionaire, from young and old alike, but maybe again, they're scared?
I think that the biggest way to overcome that fear in real estate is ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen?
That's a
And
wonderful
Bottom
idea.
line, the worst possible thing that can happen is you sell it. So, for example, when you bought your first property, you were scared.
Of course.
And we had this discussion. I said, Melanie, you buy it. You don't want to be a landlord? Call me. I'll sell it. You'll probably make a profit when you sell it. So the worst thing that can happen is nothing.
You just face that.
There's
fear,
nothing.
essentially.
There's nothing bad that can happen. You really have to ask yourself, what is the worst thing? Nothing.
Yeah.
It's an investment. The greatest thing that can happen, though, is in 5, 10, 15 years, as you've seen, you become worth more and more and more because these properties increase, the tenants pay their mortgages, your mortgages go down. Next thing you know, you have a property paid free and clear. Then at that point, you can take the money from that property and buy another one.
That's right.
That's
You
where
refinance
and you
it.
refinance and you get something else. That's how it works, right? There's nothing to be afraid of. I can't stress enough how.
I know coming from you now, somebody, you're doing it 27 years,
Yeah.
people would say, of course, you're not scared to
I
do
know.
it. But the problem is with young people particularly, or just anybody who hasn't done it before, they just have to take that first step, right?
It
Maybe
is
some-
scary. I'm not
of
saying not
course.
to be scared.
Yeah.
It's very scary. I'm just saying, go to your heart and say, really, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen to me? You sell it.
That's right.
So there's nothing bad that can happen. But I agree with you. I have compassion and understanding for a lot of these people that are, but I get the phone call a year later saying, can I find me something else, Carmen, please? I love it. I've got people now that have their buildings paid that call me 20 years later going, oh my God, I was so afraid. Do you remember how scared I was? And I go, I remember. I was holding your hand. But now it's paid for. And you're going, oh, I'm taking trips with my wife. I just bought a new car. And guess what, Carmen? The apartment building paid for it. I go, that's the difference. But yes, fear is huge with everything in life. Fear can hold you back from becoming, successful. Fear is the biggest thing that holds people back. But in real estate, there's nothing to be afraid of because you can sell it.
That's right.
You buy it, you realize I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a landlord, and sell it, and usually for a profit.
Yeah.
Usually for a profit.
Yeah.
So.
And some education might help people also in terms of knowing what to do or what to look for.
Sure.
Would you advocate, of course somebody has to learn a little bit about real estate.
I always use this scenario. If you want to drive a Mercedes, go talk to the gentleman that's driving the Mercedes and said, how did you drive that? How did you get to that point? If you talk to somebody that doesn't have what you have, it's very difficult if you take their advice. And I'm not saying not to take your friend's advice, but if your friend doesn't have what you want, be careful if you listen to them because they don't know how to get there. So for example, you listen to me.
Yes.
I have stuff. It worked out great. Now you have stuff. It's perfect, right? So whoever it is, whether someone wants to call myself but find somebody that has what you want and find out how did they get it. And then it's not rocket science. Do the same thing, especially with real estate. It's proven track record. It's
That's
a
right.
proven
Historically
track record.
speaking, there's
Historically
no
speaking,
qualms about
real estate is the way to go. Anybody that has created success and wealth is through real estate. That's
100%.
always the core of the business. Yes, you may have something else going on, but the core is always, oh, I have investment properties, I have real estate, because those people are helping you. They're paying you every month, right?
That's right.
So
A question that many people like to know before they get started perhaps is, what has real estate investing done for you? How has it affected your life? How has it changed your life? What has it done for you and your family?
the actual investing or being a real estate agent?
Investing in real estate.
Investing,
Building your wealth through real estate. What has that done?
it can let me look back at the little boy that was afraid to buy something and did it, and then paid for it, and then bought something else. And the fear subsided, but I was always afraid. I was still afraid the next time too, because you're taking a bigger step. Every time we took bigger steps, and every time there was fear involved. But again, the question always, that core question was, what's the worst thing that can happen? And my wife Dina, to be honest, would say, what's the worst thing that we can do? We sell it. So together we purchased other properties, and it's created now where we can take trips, we can enjoy the finer things in life that most people would like to do, and we're lucky we're able to do that. And that's personally what it has done financially for us. On another level, I've given a lot of people a lot of nice homes to live, and I can meet them at Zehrs or Home Depot and smile, and they'll come and shake my hand. I have tenants that give me gifts. So I can't put a price on that.
Yeah, you're
I can't put a
absolutely right.
price on that.
And not to mention, you work your own schedule, right? You
Yeah,
can
it's
choose
great.
to work or
Yes,
not work
yes,
one day if you
yeah.
don't feel like
Yeah,
it, or
it's great.
again, take all the vacation time.
It's what people like saying, I'm successful.
Yeah.
It's what everybody calls success to themselves, right? You know.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for taking the time
It's
with
been
me
great.
today.
Thank you.
And we're going to go off and see one of the most recent rental properties that I just purchased that Carmen assisted me on. And we're going to talk about what made us want to buy that house and why, some of the top reasons. So stay tuned.